Welcome to With You Podcast,
where we explore relationships and life transitions.
I'm David.
And I'm Tara.
And we're going to have a fun podcast today.
I hope it's fun.
Well, it'll end fun.
It'll end fun.
It'll end fun.
So we're just going to say a quick shout out before we get started to a few new listeners.
Yeah. Hey.
Hello. We just have a few extra people who have joined us because we're now on YouTube.
Yeah.
So you can, if you're on audio, welcome.
Yep.
Our producer son, Zachary, makes sure our audio is high quality. So we hope you're enjoying that. If you want to see us, you can also see us now on
We're not quite
YouTube.
sure why. Like we start seeing ourselves and it's like, oh, I don't remember us being this age.
It's not our favorite, but
No.
we do it and we're glad you're joining us.
Yeah.
So if you need any just quick intro beyond just what we just said about ourselves.
Yeah, because that was really quick.
I mean, yeah, we just kind of say hello and get started usually. But what we normally focus on in these episodes is really anything that has to do with relationships and times in human development and life transition.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a lot of stuff. It's pretty broad.
Yeah, it covers a lot.
But we have fun with it.
And it's relevant to everybody.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. So
and we have some skill sets in that.
Yeah. So you're a therapist.
I am.
And a professor.
I am.
So you have a lot of interest in the development side of it, of course, and your favorite subject, adolescence.
That's right. And as a marriage and family therapist, I like the relationships. You're a doula, childbirth educator, and honorary couples therapist. You do a lot. Like the whole birth process is processing intense emotions. And so the life transition of birth, but parenting and all of it, you have great stories, great experiences.
So essentially we both do a lot of family work. So we love everything to do with family life and just human life in general, and relationships.
And we like inviting you into our human life and relationship. And so we get to share a little bit about ourselves along the way as well.
Right. So there'll be more of that today. And today we're talking about a topic that if you're listening to this at the end of the year, we're really going to focus on family dynamics and holiday season.
That's right.
So, it's the time of year that everybody gets excited when things start, getting pretty again. The lights come out and all the decorations in the stores, and it feels like everybody's creating magic.
Yeah.
But I think it also has the opposite effect on a lot of people.
Yeah.
I think the holidays now bring a lot of anxiety and pain, loneliness, highlighted family dynamics.
Yeah.
So we just wanted to get into this and talk about the challenges and why that's really normal and why you're not alone if you're feeling not excited about the holidays.
And we're going to be honest and we're going to be hopeful.
Yes.
So
So stick around because we'll talk about the challenges.
And if you leave halfway, you're going to leave pretty depressed.
Because we really will dive into why it can be hard and why people don't talk about it. But we hope to leave you a little hopeful about ways you could maybe do the holidays in a way that feels more peaceful.
Yeah. And places where we found hope.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's start out with what we look forward to in this season of the year. And if you're in July, well, this is what you have to look forward to is Thanksgiving and Christmas. But what do you look forward to?
For me, I always look forward mostly just to having my family all around me.
Yeah.
That's the thing I'm always at. Everything I do is driven towards that. I do enjoy the planning. I'm one of those strange people that really does kind of like planning meals and, making lists, but it's really all driven around making the environment for our family together.
And there's a lot of laughter, a lot of nonsense. And we do look forward to that and having fun. I look forward to the traditions. I'm a traditionalist.
You are.
And so I love the traditions of Christmas markets. I love the traditions of baked goods.
Baked goods. Yeah, you do love the good smell of a pastry in the oven.
I love participating in the pastry eating. The pastry making, you and the kids do that so well.
And what's your favorite?
My favorite is called banquette, and it's spelled I don't know how it's spelled, but it's a Dutch treat.
Yeah.
And it's this flaky pastry that's golden brown with butter on top and then some sugar, just not drizzled, but sprinkled on top. And on the inside, this magical food called almond paste.
Yes, it's an almond filled pastry that your mom taught me how to make. So it's in the Dutch tradition, and it does smell so good.
And we call them logs.
Yeah, because they're long, skinny pastry, and she taught me the trick of getting the really flaky, crispy pastry light. So yeah,
that and a cup of
and we
coffee.
only do that at the holidays,
Yeah.
so you have to wait all year, and that's why it's extra special.
My mouth is starting to water. I would still have weeks and
I know, I'm
weeks,
getting hungry now.
But even that is relational because you have taken those traditions and infused them in our holiday season so that all the kids, both the bonus kids and our kids, biological kids, know how to make banquet.
Yeah.
And do it really well. Maybe maybe everyone makes banquet and I judge it. And so I get to eat
There's no judgment in pastry.
9 logs of banquet.
Nice try.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you're right. Like the things we eat, the things we do are all sort of centered around the family traditions at the holiday times.
One of my favorite family traditions was the Van Dyke, the big Van Dyke family. So there's my parents and Nathan and I, but then there's the big Van Dyke family, and we would play bingo.
Oh, that's right.
And
your grandma would lead everybody in bingo, and there were prizes, and it was a big
and then
thing.
the winner at the end was you had to fill out the whole bingo card, and it was those books of lifesavers. I don't know if you remember, but the lifesavers, there's like 4 or 5 rows of them, and they're in a book.
That was
and
the grand prize.
The grand prize, and it was. Have you ever seen bloodthirsty bingo? It was.
Can't say that I have.
It was remarkable. And then there's always Grandma would call out before, and of course,
After?
us Hollanders would yell, after or before what, and there'd be that kind of fun. So that's what.
So the games, the togetherness, the pastries, and anything else you're looking forward to this holiday season?
I am looking forward to some time off.
Yeah, time off.
And I know
good.
I have it special because I'm an academic, so we get a good chunk of time off. Not everybody does.
Not everybody gets the time off at the holidays, but we do look forward to that, having a bit of a different pace. And also, I think we look forward to just different practices around our faith in Advent.
Well, and Thanksgiving.
There's certain things that we get out, and there's certain services we go to, and those are a part of the rhythm for us at the holidays.
Giving thanks, Thanksgiving place cards, you would put a verse, my mom would put a verse, we'd read and really focus on
gratitude.
Yeah, there can be hard things, but there's still a lot that we can be thankful for, and the gratitude of each other, of our God, of time together.
Yeah.
So those are the good things.
Yeah. So we thought we'd start out good because
I feel warm and cozy.
Yeah. But even listing the good can highlight the things that aren't good, because as we start talking about this, we're really going into why this is the picture that everybody has usually of the holidays, like family gathering and fun games and good things to eat. And it's not always what it looks like. No. And even if it looks like that, it can highlight the things that you don't want to talk about in those situations. So here we go. We're going to talk about why the holidays are hard.
Let's put our seatbelts on, strap in, because we're going on a bumpy ride.
Yeah.
And
so
speaking of bumpy ride.
Oh yeah, that's good. We're on the same page. So yeah, for us, holidays often just started with traveling somewhere. Yeah. So the travel itself, the getting somewhere, can be a challenge. This isn't a huge challenge, but it can be.
Yeah.
For us, when we were raising our kids, we didn't live in the same town as either of the sets of grandparents.
No.
So we made it our structure, our tradition to go every other year to your parents or to mine. Mm-hmm. And so it involved a drive.
Yes, it did. And it could be a short drive or a long drive.
And short means 3.5 hours at best.
When we lived in Illinois. When we lived in Georgia,
Oh, yeah, it was even
That
longer.
was longer.
The drive to Colorado was 19 hours.
Mercy.
And with a family of 6 in a minivan, and sometimes with our dog as well. I forgot.
I
Just
forgot
thinking
about that
about
too.
that.
And then we had to figure out hotel with the dog.
And we stayed in a hotel along the
Mhm.
way, and we were bringing the gifts. And so we were packed to the gills, and we had a lot of kids, and it was winter, of course, if we're going in the holidays. So
Slippy.
we would often encounter ice, and once the highway was shut down completely.
Who knew?
We didn't believe it when we saw the
No.
signs. We kept going.
And then we started to see all these cars taking an exit.
Well, the final exit before they had an actual
Gate.
gate
Yeah.
across the highway, and
None shall pass.
we had to exit on a sheet of ice, and a pickup truck hit us from behind, and we had damage, and we had to stay in a hotel with everybody else who was forced to exit. It was
And there were 6 of us in one hotel room, and I was smiling because I was thinking about that, because we had crazy setups. Like Annika slept in a closet in a pack and play, and I mean, it was just the chaos. And if you are really detailed oriented, it can be overwhelming because it was not what was planned.
it was not what was planned.
It was a deviation.
Yeah. And not to mention all the people that are traveling by plane somewhere for the holidays, which can often lead to delays and cancellations and just extra stress. So just starting off before we even get to the holidays, sometimes we're adding a lot of just outside our norm.
And that builds on you. I mean, so you're already a little bit stressed and tired, and you arrive at the family gathering.
Yeah, with a big hole in your bumper.
That's right. And you spent money that you didn't plan on, and all of it.
Yeah.
You can see why you're primed for certain responses, maybe not the best responses.
Right. So there's the start. Then just kind of as we get into the other things that are added to the season, I think of this, and this, you kind of had a list of things you thought about. I was looking at your list and I added this one.
Okay.
I'm just going to say the general busyness of the events. And I think I feel this more because, when we were in the school system and had 4 kids, you add all, and it starts out fun and exciting. It's it's a time everybody wants to gather and celebrate something. But when you add celebrations for everything you're involved in, so your church things, your school things, your work things, your friends, your neighborhood, your family, it really starts to build and build and build until it feels overwhelming. And all those things that were going to be fun now just feel like one more thing. It starts to feel like the fun kind of gets sucked out of it.
Just thinking about that, like when the kids were in elementary school, all the parents would fight for signing up for a Christmas party event.
Oh, you think they would?
But then as they got
class party?
Yeah, the class party. And then as they got closer, it was like, what have we done? So because it's one more thing.
Yeah. When the kids were little, it sounded exciting to be
we were new parents.
Right.
Yeah.
To be the mom for the class party and to plan it.
Mm-hmm.
Then by the time it's your 4th kid, you're like, sign me up for paper plates.
That's right.
And I'm not showing up.
And I'll drop them off. I'll send them with the kid.
Yeah.
But it's the anticipation and what it really is. And after years, it becomes one more thing, and the additive piece of it. Because each one of those is good on its own.
Great.
But you have so many.
Yeah.
And so the busyness isn't the thing. It's all the things combined that just death by 1,000 cuts.
Right. And so that's all the events and parties. And, each one you have to think about what to wear for, or if you have to bring a dish, or you have to bring a gift for the gift exchange. That adds up. And then let's just talk about gifting. I don't know how this is around the world, but I feel like in the US culture, it's really gotten out of control, where we're expected to give gifts to everyone we've ever had an encounter with, and with anyone who provides us any service. And it's out of generosity. It's out of a great spirit. And it's about abundance, and it's about giving at that time of year. But when you add that up for people who are already feeling financially stretched, it feels really overwhelming.
And the comparison, right? Like if you decide, oh, I just don't have the margin to give to the school teacher, you're the only one in the class not giving, or your kid is the only one in the class not giving to the school teacher. It's rough. So there's that
Yeah.
pressure. It's like, well, we financially can't do it, but then we have
I
to.
know. And that was new to me when we joined the school system. I can remember when our oldest was in probably first grade, and I overheard some of the other moms talking about what to give the teacher for Christmas. I didn't at that time even know that was a thing that you were supposed to do, but to say, oh, I'm one of them had bought her a silver bracelet. One of them had bought her a huge, gift basket from somewhere. And I remember thinking, oh no,
Yeah.
how do I can't, I'm already feeling overwhelmed with family gifts. And so I started making ginger snaps. Every year I made my ginger snap cookies for the teachers, and it wasn't costly. I had the kids involved, so they were helping make the gift for their teacher. And that became the thing I was known for.
Yeah.
So the teachers expected those every year. So that's how I solved that.
Yeah. Which
But-
is a good solution. And then it's expected.
And then it's expected.
And so you're like, oh, I don't have time. I'm going to buy some store-bought cookies. Wah, wah.
And then it's a disappointment.
Yeah, then even though you're still giving cookies, it's a problem because it's not the expected response.
Yeah.
And that I
So-
think that leans into how it all builds up. I think both of these things we've been talking about in terms of work parties, school parties, gifts, in and of themselves, again, beautiful,
Yeah.
deserved, not bad. We love being invited to parties, so don't hear us saying don't invite us to parties. And yet the cumulative aspect of making this magical time, this special time,
Yes.
all the effort, the mental fatigue, the
Yes.
financial fatigue, it weighs on you. And I think it weighed on you more than it did me.
Well, certainly. Because let's be honest, who
Yeah.
is doing the work?
Not me.
Yeah. And and that starts out being a fun thing. I do enjoy that. But then the mental load, and the mental load is a real thing because it's not just the doing, it's the carrying, the planning, the responsibility, the decisions, all of that stuff can be really overbearing
Yeah.
during the holidays. And I think it really crushes a lot of people, especially just from my experience, the moms who have kids and are expected to be the ones buying the gifts. And that's not the way every family works, but I think the majority of the time it's the mom who's making the magic.
Yeah. And then think about a single parent,
Mm-hmm.
mom or dad, with this pressure, having to do this and manage everything else. The load is even more, even though
Right.
the load was all on you, basically, in ours. We could share and there was a support, but if you're a single parent and you have all of this, it's even, you feel the loneliness more and you feel the mental fatigue and the load more.
Yeah. And it did help when somewhere not that many years ago, I think you noticed that I was feeling really kind of over it and hitting the wall.
You weren't getting out of bed, rocking back and forth. It was a clue.
That's actually not true.
No.
I always get out of bed. Let's carry on. But I was hitting the wall, and you asked if you could do anything, and when I have all these lists, I don't feel like I can even communicate to you what you can do for me. But just sitting down and saying, let's talk through the list together, let's think about the gifts together, was a helpful way to share the load. And I do know other people who do that in a creative way, like your cousins.
Yep.
They often go on a shopping trip together. They'll spend a whole weekend, stay in a hotel together, make lists together, go just hit one mall or shopping center over the weekend and knock out all their shopping, and they make it a fun girls outing. So,
and they spend time together. It shifts it. So it's like, we're intentionally going to do it this way.
Yeah. Yeah. But just, that busyness, I think a lot of people are going to relate that's what's kind of looming as they come into the holidays, just feeling like they're already kind of behind and have so many things they have to do that are obligations. And that can really be.
So let's put this in chronological order. You have all this busyness. You're working on all of this, and then you have to drive
Right.
to
Because
family.
part of that
so you're
is-
already fatigued.
Yeah.
And now you have to make really good decisions
And then
in a
you have
locked
to
car.
face the family dynamics.
Yes. And then you walk in the door.
You walk in the door and they say, oh, wow, make a comment on your appearance or
that's always
on
fun.
your job, or why haven't you had kids yet? Or
Are
who
you
are
dating?
you dating?
Yeah.
Or, that sort of those intrusive
Yeah.
questions that can
What
feel
happened
like
to your
pressure.
hair?
Yeah.
Right. All of those things.
Right.
Like I haven't seen you in a while, and
And
now
this is, we're not speaking about our specific families. I
no,
feel like
no,
we're
it's
not,
hypothetical.
this is all general,
Yeah.
but just a lot of people report that that's what's the most stressful part of Christmas is facing this microcosm. You know, when you go home, like home for the holidays, you have
Mm-hmm.
this kind of vision in your head of what that might be.
Yep.
And a lot of times it actually it highlights the things that are hard.
Yeah. I had a friend this morning talk about just over 40 years, he and his brother drift. And you see how far the drift happens in terms of faith and practice. And then you kind of come back together and you're thinking about coming back together like you were 40 years ago.
Mm.
And you're so far apart. So even the mental kind of expectation of this is our life together. And then you actually run into each other and you're 40 years older and it's not the same. And so
Yeah.
there's a loss almost like, oh, I
Oh,
was looking
right.
forward to being with my brother or my sister and it's not the
But
same.
you're in a different place.
You're in a different place. They're in a different place. And so the reminiscing, the kind of dreaming of the way things used to be, it's a harsh reality that it's different.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily bad, but it's different. And that
Yeah.
disappointment of the difference
Yeah.
can be weighted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's just the clash of doing things differently. You know, anytime you put multiple families under one roof,
Yeah.
there may be different styles of parenting. There may be different ways of doing a lot of things
Yeah.
that sort of kind of come up against each other.
Yeah. From
And
bedtimes to what you eat to how you discipline and everybody,
to who's pitching in,
Yeah.
who's, yeah.
all of those expectations that often are implicit and you think that it's going to go a certain way. And then you bump up against, I know we have, you bump up against, and then there's our parents' ways of doing it and expectation. And
Yeah.
it's not good or bad. It's just different. And we get caught in that pull. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's easy to adjust. A lot of times it's not. But again, let's think chronologically. We've had the busyness, we've had the travel, and now we're
Yeah.
bumping into this. Oftentimes something has to give.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes there's that thing that, and this isn't just about the holidays, but there's that sort of regression that happens. You know, when you go to your
Mhm.
parents' house and you kind of slip into your old patterns or roles.
Yeah.
And so I think that happens and people assume different things about what they need to do to be part of this system. And oftentimes you've grown in different ways and it doesn't work the same way. And so
Mhm.
there's just that, like, how does this all fit? Or there's making assumptions about what other people want from you.
Mhm.
And so there's a lot of things in our own heads and that
Yeah.
are actually explicitly happening.
Well, I think about our family. We have, the kids are living with us right now, which is great. And we have expectations, but it doesn't always happen. It's easy for us to fall into we'll just be the parents to take care of it, even though we're all adults. And so
Mhm.
how do you navigate a lot of implicit expectations that go with rhythms and go with past behavior? So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a lot. I'm feeling the load.
I know. Yeah. And this is, I don't think this is, only true for a few people. I think this happens to some degree just about anywhere
Yeah.
that families get together. And I think when we think about these family dynamics and how hard it is to be together, and also what's really hard is about when we're not together and we want to be, or
Mhm.
if somebody's missing.
Yeah.
You
And the
know?
missing part, both if they couldn't get there because their job prevents them or they're living too far away, or it's been a death in the family.
Right.
And these anniversary things actually heighten grief. There's really
Yeah.
good literature on that anniversary issues around the date of death and birthdays, but also around
Around
holidays,
holidays. Yeah.
because it's not the same and it's pronounced that that person is missing, that person is not here. So it's a great time to be together and it's a painful time to be
Yeah.
together because we're grieving again.
Right. So the grief can really rise to the top
Yeah.
during the holidays, and not just when somebody has passed away, but also just when there's been a broken relationship.
Yeah.
Um,
Emotional cutoff, just
mhm.
not going to show up. There's the relationship hasn't been repaired. And so it heightens
Yeah.
that pain too.
Yeah. So that can be really a painful time for people, even when the family's getting together.
Yeah.
Sometimes, especially when the family's getting
Mhm.
together. So I think that most people can also relate to that, that there's, some of that rises to the top for their family, and it just makes it fresh.
Yeah.
Even if it happened years ago, it just kind of highlights what's the same, what's different.
And just the other loss is over time, our abilities shift. So I think about whether it's shoveling or just different expectations of parents or kids. Of it changes over time, and so that can be a grief too. The
Mm,
person's there, but they're there not the same way, and
yeah.
that can be really. It's great to spend time together, and it's sad,
Yeah.
and both things
Yeah.
can be held.
Both
So
things are true.
yeah.
Yeah, well, and that's just on the same lines. And sorry, this part feels hard because it is about what's hard.
Well, and this
Um,
is what's under the surface that we try to uh, cover over with wrapping paper and glittery lights and frosting. That it's
yeah,
like we have to be having such a good time that we glitter over everything. And this is what's working underneath. It's important for us to talk about it.
yeah. And I think loneliness
Yeah,
also, for a lot of people who would like to be somewhere with people and they're not, or
yeah.
they're feeling really alone, or um, they really literally have no place to go.
Hmm.
That can be, when the holidays are approaching, it feels like a really hard time. But I think you're right that a lot of the merrymaking
Hmm.
is compensation for what
Yeah.
we're missing, or just kind of forcing
Yeah, can you can
fun.
hear those forced Christmas carols like and a partridge in a pear tree, and it's like wow, that's pressured. You're singing pressured, but it's because
Yeah,
there's other things underneath, and you don't want to be a bummer. You don't want to like bring it down of like, well, let's talk about this. But if we don't, it's working on our bodies. It's working in our
yeah,
reactivity in our relationships
right.
in implicit ways. That's not healthy. So how do we hold these two things? We're going to get to that, but there's
Yeah.
still, I think there's also how do we live up to expectations?
Hmm.
And that can be a painful thing, whether it's you're you're expected to do something or be a certain way in your family and you're not that way. And how do you deal with the shame that maybe implicitly is communicated of
Hmm.
that's not the plan I had for your life. And that's not who I thought you would be or who you'd marry.
No, and why does that come up so much at the holidays?
Mm,
Just because we're getting together, or we have to make the Christmas card look like everybody's got it together.
yeah. Take the picture. Everybody smile
Right,
for
right.
the Christmas
Right.
card.
And it makes it feel like everybody's masking something. But I think that's part of where the pressure comes from, to not talk about it as much, as it feels like, well, I don't want to bring it all down, or we're expected to be making merry today, or everybody's festive, and I don't want to be the sad one in the corner.
But I think there can be joy in playing with that. I mean, you've heard me use this analogy before, but a beach ball is meant to be played with. If we push it under the water, under the surface, it takes so much energy to hold
Mhm.
underneath there. Eventually it
Mhm.
pops up, hits us in the face, water sprayed everywhere. If we
Yeah.
would just use it the way it's meant to be used, batting it back and forth, sharing it,
Yeah.
participating together, there's energy that we can use longer. I feel that way about this, that we
Yeah.
try to push this all down
Mhm.
during Thanksgiving, during Christmas, during all the winter holidays, that it eventually comes back to bite us rather
Yeah.
than playing with it. Not play like but play in terms of sharing it, talking about it,
Yeah.
um, being honest
Right.
with each other and with ourselves.
Right.
So we have loneliness.
Yeah.
And
And
now let's lean into what everybody loves, the financial strain.
right. Yeah. And that just goes with all of the things we're obligated to attend and buy and contribute to, that is partly just the same as everything we're talking about. There's expectations and there's reality. And if the
Hmm.
expectation is, we're buying lots of gifts and we're attending lots of parties, going on vacations, it doesn't always match with what's possible in our finances. So we feel the burden
Yeah.
of being overstretched, both in our time and our finances, and feeling like afterwards we're really going to be struggling.
Yeah. And the expectation. So there's our first Christmas together is a great a great kind of story about financial differences in family of origin and how that played out for us, different expectations, implicit things that we didn't talk about, and the difficulties of being alone and yet being newly married for our first Christmas.
Yeah. So shall we paint that picture?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I'll start out with, it started out on Christmas Eve. Where because of lots of circumstances, partly my own and partly other people's, we ended up in traffic court.
We hadn't gotten the name changed over in time on our car registration.
And it was in your name.
Yeah, it was a snafu. But you got pulled over in my car.
Yes, and with your license plate.
License plate had expired because I hadn't updated my whatever.
Under a completely different name.
I know. So
I got pulled over as I pulled into where I was working.
This is a whole extra. We don't need to tell all the details, but yes, because it was a complicated situation, we had to appear in traffic court to plead our case on Christmas Eve.
As 22-years.
As on our first Christmas married. I don't even know if our kids have heard that story.
No, I don't think they have. We have buried this deep.
That's that beach ball.
Yes.
Ooh, it's way under the
it's time to play with it.
Let's get that out there. So to further paint the picture, when we were first married, we married in July. This is our first Christmas. So we've been married about 6 months, a little less than 6 months. Our first apartment was a basement. So we lived in the basement of somebody's home. So basically no light coming in,
which is great
underground,
for you.
Which is, wonderful. So that's our situation. And because you were new in your job, you didn't get time off and you had to work.
I had to work Christmas
Eve and Christmas Day.
Yeah.
So we weren't able to be with family. And Christmas morning, you went to work at 7 a.m.
Yeah. Gave you a kiss, said, see ya later.
Yeah. And I was home trying to make our perfect Christmas dinner, trying to do cooked my first turkey and cooked the full frozen neck inside of it because I had no idea what that was and that I should pull it out.
And then when we were carving it, I'm like,
what is this thing inside?
I've never seen this in here.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I've never cooked a turkey before.
It wasn't what we thought it was at first. It's like, oh, it's the neck.
Yeah. And so I'm in this basement all day on Christmas Day by myself, hearing the family who lived above us having their family Christmas. So we were already
jolly
pretty
Christmas.
lonely.
Yeah.
And I think I talked to both of our parents, and both of our moms, cried on the phone because they felt so bad for us.
Mm-hmm.
I think we were thinking it could be cozy and fun, our first Christmas. But then we hadn't really had a clear talk about how we were going to do gifts for each other the first year. I think we just said, let's just not go crazy. Let's just get a few things for each other.
Be reasonable.
Yeah.
Little did we know.
And so, we grew up in different families, and I think we both followed sort of the patterns that we grew up with out of love, but they turned out to be quite different. Yeah. In my family,
what was reasonable was
so in my family, you got 3 gifts.
Yeah.
One that was sort of from Santa Claus, and it was maybe a bigger thing. One very practical thing, like piece of clothing, and one maybe a small toy or something. Yeah. And our stockings, there was always an orange in the toe and a coloring book kind of keeping it round, and then a few little things in there.
And then my family's sense of reasonableness was having a lot to open. And I think this was kind of Depression era leftover. Like the more you could open, the better. And so my mom and dad, dad's a pro rapper.
Yes, he is not the most pro rapper.
But like wrapping paper rapper.
Yeah.
And they would wrap everything. So like our stockings would be things for daily living that we would need. Like
your toothbrush,
deodorant, travel toothpaste.
Yeah.
But they would all be wrapped, and we would have that in our stocking. And then
there'd be fun things in there too.
It
was full.
Yeah.
Full stocking.
It was full. Yeah. And so it would take 30 minutes to unwrap all your stocking stuff. And then we would have gifts, and they wouldn't be extravagant, but there would be a lot of gifts. And that's what I've learned now from Gary Chapman is there's a love language called gift giving. That's my mom's gift and love language.
Yeah.
And so we all learned that reasonable gift giving was a lot.
Yeah.
Yours was 3. Herein lies the problem that we didn't talk about.
Yes. So I had my 3 little things for you, and you had a lot. of things.
Which both met the parameter of reasonable.
Yeah, sure. We had to redefine that.
We did.
And yeah, and strangely, we both felt a little unseen.
Yeah.
And
Alone.
yeah, and lonely, even though, we were in our first year of marriage and feeling, still in sort of that honeymoon phase. It felt like, oh, like I don't feel like this other person completely gets who I am yet, or my family traditions. Yeah. So it was, those times can be hard too.
Yeah. So we wanted this precious, we were living out a fantasy of what we thought it should be. Mm-hmm. And it was not.
How did we eat that giant turkey all by ourselves?
We had it for about 2 weeks. It was like, it was a good.
I mean, I did the whole thing, the stuffing, everything.
Yeah, except for the neck, everything was delicious. But it's now looking back, we can laugh and appreciate the message of it. In the moment, it was hard.
Yeah.
And it wasn't what we wanted. And so the desire for connection actually led to feeling lonely and missing each other. And I think that happens a lot. And around gift giving and around the idea of giving, there can be a joyful desire for that and it still missed the mark.
Yeah.
And how do we recover from it?
Right.
Is really, really important.
Right.
And then decorations.
Well, I mean, it's all about expectations, really.
Yeah.
So everything that we just talked about, really the core thing is, what are those expectations and how are they mismatched? Our own expectations for what we, our vision or what we're hoping for, what we expect of ourselves or from other people, and then other people's expectations for us and for the holiday.
Can I just say the messaging on expectations on media is remarkable, because we were watching the news and a commercial came on for a Hallmark holiday cruise.
Oh yeah, what is that?
Just
about expectations?
The expectation of this is what Christmas is. It's like all the bells and whistles, and it looked miserable, but
because it's somebody's
it's
idea
someone's
of a good holiday.
expectation of
It's
a good
not
holiday.
your idea of a good holiday. Also, I saw this brings up. I thought you were going to bring this up because I saw this on the news, a backlash towards a commercial. Did you see this? Do you know what I'm talking about? So Coca-Cola, how they have this iconic commercial with the polar bears and the trucks coming into town and the snow and the lights. And I think it's a kind of a classic.
Yeah, it's throwback to the 80s, I think.
Yeah, I'm not sure when it was first done, but they tried to do a remake of that using AI, all AI-driven graphics, which I think they thought, this is the expectation now. Every website that I'm on says you can generate your own AI graphics now. That's kind of where everything's going. And they probably thought this will be the new thing.
So cool.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, everybody hated it.
Why did
Apparently,
they hate it?
there's a lot of backlash because it looks creepy. The people don't look real. That feels creepy. That's their expectation. And a lot of us want the nostalgia. We want the things the way they were. We're not ready for things to change. And also, we want something different.
Yeah.
But it's hard to find a match.
And then there's social media. Right. The snapshot, which is just a moment. There might be screaming babies, and then you have a moment of, after 50 pictures, that here's the moment that we put as Christmas. And it's really very small compared to everything else. So all those expectations lead us into, how can we have a hopeful, peaceful holiday?
Get to that.
Yeah.
Let's get to we hope you stayed with us this long, because I know the painful part is hard, but I think it's also...
It's real.
And I think most people feel like they've experienced that.
Okay.
So we just have some ideas for how to maybe make it a little bit more peaceful.
Take a nice cleansing breath. And here we go.
Stick with us for the more hopeful.
I think we have 3 things that we think give hopeful, peaceful holiday possibilities.
Yeah. So we kind of set them into 3 different things because we want to keep this not complicated. So the first thing, we've talked about expectations a lot. So the first thing before we can go anywhere else is setting the expectations. Yeah. Just setting them and communicating them.
Right. And it starts with us.
Starts with yourself.
We have to look at each one of us has to look at what is the implicit under unspoken thing. Can I really know what I'm expecting? Can I identify it and bring it to the surface?
Right. So what is it that I'm hoping for? What is it that's disappointing me when it doesn't happen?
Yep.
What is it that's painful for me and why? And what is my vision for what the holiday should be
Yeah.
like?
And then us sharing that,
Right.
of sharing, this is my expectation. So like with our reasonable gifts,
Yeah.
if we would just talk about, well, what does that
Yeah.
mean to me? What does that mean to you? We can negotiate so that we have a shared expectation
Yeah.
that we can then live around.
Yeah.
That allows for the lack of the miscommunication
Right.
that we
Just
had.
saying it out loud goes
Yeah.
a long way. Saying it out loud in your own head and to the people who are going to be part of your, your family system or your
Yeah.
community for the holidays goes a long way.
And then there's managing others' expectations.
Yeah. I think that's a lot of what people are really afraid of is other people's expectations getting put on them or other people's ideas or ways of doing things.
Yeah.
So it's finding out where's my line, where are my boundaries, and communicating that as well.
Yeah. And Henry Cloud wrote a good book on boundaries. And I think that's helpful of like good boundaries make good relationships. And it sounds like it might be painful, but the upfront pain of having that conversation is so much better than the wait later on.
Yeah. Well, and I think when we say boundaries, some people think that means totally cutting off from somebody who's,
No.
who you feel hurt by. To us, to me, that means more of having the conversation about it, and knowing how you can enter in and honor the relationship without causing further harm to yourself.
And being able, so like when we go over to my folks or your folks, saying, here's what we really want to be a part of, and this is the family tradition, and we want this time or we want this space, because that's going to help our kids and us to then be able to be present in a meaningful way for the other things. So it's a both and in setting boundaries rather than we're going to do this and you can just lump it. Right. So we're saying the same thing, but the way we say it matters.
You're right. The way we say it matters a lot.
Yeah. So setting boundaries, clear communication, and the way we talk about it, because you said that in a respectful way, but I think it's being able to say, I see this, I want this, this is also what we need so that we can do that. How do we work together and kind of co-share the boundaries or co-create the boundaries? So that's the expectation.
Yeah. And then also being okay with things not being perfect. Like part of that.
No, that's just, now you're just getting
That's
ridiculous.
crazy talk.
That is crazy talk.
So, I mean, I think honestly, that's part of the problem. And I know, even my mom, like she had such a vision when we'd all come back, all 5 of us and our spouses, and just that would kind of whip you up into a, like, I've got to get everything perfect. And I think we all fall into that a little bit of like creating this perfect scenario and having the perfect, we have so little time. We want it all to be perfect. So being okay with messy, setting your expectations a little lower for what perfection even looks like. Yeah. Like, let's just take it down a notch and be okay with.
So I take things too far. And
no.
So in my office, in my university office, I have a Christmas tree, but I set it. I do. It's a plunger.
Okay.
That has some green things sticking out of it, and I use a little piece of toilet paper as tinsel.
Oh no!
And I hang one Christmas ornament on it, and so it's this powerful message that's a little too far of like, you don't need to be perfect. But
sometimes a little effort goes a long way.
But I think people are wishing there was a little more effort. But it's right in the middle of my table for when we have discussions, and people are like, "Oh,
isn't that interesting?"
And they don't know exactly how to respond to it, which gives me pure joy.
Yeah.
But I think it challenges expectations, right? Like I'm doing it in a very sarcastic way but how do we bring to the forefront of, we can enjoy our time together. These things aren't as important as we think they are, of having picture perfect.
It's true. There's some stuff we can just let go of, honestly. And that's really hard.
But this
to know
is
what to let go of.
32 years of doing this together. Like we would struggle with this message early in our relationship of the first year of marriage or when we had young kids.
Yeah.
So yes, we want it to be wisdom for the past, and we want to acknowledge, yeah, we didn't do that. And
No.
I don't know how we would hear this message back then.
Right. I think it takes some time to curate to really understand what it is that you want and what it is that's hurtful, and then try to start changing some of those things and
Yeah.
building a different structure. And it has taken time for us
Yeah.
to learn that about ourselves and each other. We couldn't do it all in one. We couldn't just hear a message and do it all in one year.
No.
But changing some small things, and even just and one. So our next suggestion
Yeah, I think it's towards
is
that.
is really towards that. It's simplify and simplify. And I know that people are like, yeah, that could mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people.
Does this bring you joy?
Does it spark joy?
Oh, does it spark
Yes.
joy? Yeah, see, I
Yes,
can't even
the
do it
Marie
right. Does this?
Kondo
Yeah.
method of cleaning your house. So basically, what I mean is just pare it down, cut some things out, reduce some of the things that are extra, that are just busyness or obligations. Um, and I mean that by activities, but also just like, so we like to say things melt down when you don't meet the basic needs first.
Yeah, that's right.
So to simplify, think about, are my basic needs met before I do this thing? Like, is this thing going to cost me? Am I going to be exhausted if I say yes to all this?
Yeah.
So make sure you're getting sleep, you're eating well,
Yeah,
you're staying hydrated.
And that eating well is
You're-
hard over the holidays because it's going to be all sugar,
Eating a lot of
like
junk.
a full sugar,
Yeah.
3 courses of
You
full
have to
sugar.
bring your own snacks to a party. Do it.
Yeah, have some carrots, something that has been planted in the ground.
Yeah.
Because
Enjoy the good stuff, but also realize that there is a cost to our bodies sometimes.
yeah, that the basic need. I can't live on sugar alone, even though I love the cookie. I love Bonket. Did I tell you I love Bonket?
Yeah.
And yet
Yeah.
I can't live on Bonket.
No. And it's not good if you only eat that.
Right. And so
Right.
basic that I was just thinking about that, like, because we can go a little crazy with all the sweets and the fudge and
Yeah.
at all the parties too.
Yeah.
Like I come home.
It's so fun. It's only once a year. You just think you shouldn't. It's about indulgence. It's about abundance. It's about all these, these treats that make you feel good. But
Yeah, if you have 27 parties of all those indulgent treats one time.
and if you're drinking at each of those parties, just
Yeah.
think about all of those choices and what that's doing to how you feel, and what resources that's giving you to now deal with dynamics and all
Yeah.
those extra stressors.
The 19-hour car ride.
Yeah.
All of those things go together. So
Yeah.
simplify, and there's things that you feel like you should do, like obligations. They may not be have tos.
Yeah. Are they
And-
life-giving? We've started coming up with that question because sometimes they're great things.
Yeah.
They're things you want to attend in an ideal world. If you had nothing else, it would be a great thing.
Yeah.
But when there's so much, sometimes when you're choosing what to cut out, if it's like, well, I feel like we should go to that, or those people kind of were hoping we would go with them, that might be one of those things that you can cut. If
Yeah.
it's like, no, it makes me stressed out to even think of going, maybe it's one of those things that
Mhm.
you can cancel.
And it might not even be a thing to cancel, but in the midst of the family party, taking a break,
Right.
right? Like there's not an obligation to stay engaged the whole time. And
Yeah.
I don't understand that as an extrovert, but hypothetically, I believe
Yeah.
that's the case
Yeah.
for others.
Yes, it is
That
for me.
You need some quiet time. You need some downtime.
Sometimes
A
you
walk
need
in the
to-
snow,
Yeah.
quiet time reading in bed
Yeah.
or in a room that there's no other people. And that's okay. Now, if that's all you do and you're isolating from people, problematic. So all of these things in extremes, problematic, but in terms of pacing and simplifying can be really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else you want to say about simplifying?
No, I think that's,
For me, just the one thing I want to add is I also reduce my expectations for decorations.
yeah.
I mean, in the American Midwest, it feels like your house has to be, you could change everything
Yeah, you
for
can
Christmas. You got to change it
use-
for fall.
use
It's fall,
energy.
y'all, and
Use energy for that would heat a small village just in Christmas lights outside your house.
yeah. For me, that's stressful. So I like to keep that simple too. And we just don't have a lot of space. So storage, all of that, even year
Hmm.
round, can be stressful. So we keep it pretty simple
Yeah.
with decorating.
And I think we've done that with gifts too, as a family, of simplifying. Like, we're not a stuff family. And so rather than give stuff,
Well, I think
which,
that's evolved, right?
yeah,
Because it didn't start out that
no,
way.
we start out like we talked about,
Yeah.
more stuff, the better.
Yeah, and it feels like you get caught up in the expectation of, even so far as, when the children were in school, you come back from Christmas holiday, and the first essay that the teacher makes the kids write in elementary school is, "What did I get for Christmas?"
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. That's
even that
brutal.
just sets it sets the comparison, it sets the expectation, it sets the focus on what did I get. So we worked really hard to pull back from that and say, what did you
Yeah.
give? What did you participate in? What did you do with your family? And tried to refocus our gifts from things that got discarded or not used to experiences together. So giving things that would give over the year, like, season passes to baseball games for
Yeah.
you, or,
Arboretum
a
membership to hang out
membership,
in the woods.
yeah, to a museum or
Yep.
an arboretum. So that went over well. I
Yeah.
think, maybe, I'm trying to think when it started, but I think we started asking our parents for those things for our kids because we were feeling overwhelmed by the number of things
Yeah.
coming in the house for the children. And so we said, why don't you just get them a children's museum membership instead
Yeah.
of more toys?
Otherwise, we're going to have to keep the stuff and get rid of the children because there's not enough space in the house.
Something's got to go.
Something's got to go. So
Yeah.
if you want us to keep the children,
Yeah.
stop giving us stuff.
Yeah.
And I think the piece to that, like, what did you give? We also started draw names as a family of adults, and there's been a beauty to see the joy in
Yeah.
the people that have drawn the name and are able to think about that person, give that gift. It's been really powerful.
Honestly, it's one of my favorite things
Yeah, you get
about
misty
I
about
do,
this.
because we tried to avoid that building of the number of people you'd have to give for every year as our family grows. I felt that in my own family of origin. It just got out of hand where you just can't afford to buy everybody something, and you don't spend much time with them, so you don't even know what to give
Yeah.
them. And I didn't want it to feel like that here. So we started drawing names for St. Nick's, where the kids would each draw a name of
Mhm.
each other. And we've continued that with our in-law kids, and we've
Yeah.
thrown ourselves into the mix. It used to be just for the kids. But it's so fun to watch because they spend time thinking about that one person. And then I feel like they get the most joy out of watching that person open their gift that they gave them.
Yeah.
And so it also reduces the pressure for buying all these things and the financial stress.
It's the heart of simplifying. It simplifies costs. It simplifies all the demands, and it increases the beautiful connection and
Yeah.
thoughtfulness between people. All right, so our
Okay.
last one.
Our last
If
one.
you've made it, good on you, mate.
Yeah. So once we've done those things, what we're really setting the stage for is so that we can savor the season. So our last thing is to find, even if you find moments, because it's a tall order to say, just savor Advent, just
Mhm.
really delight in the sacred and enjoy the holy moments. That's the aspirational
Mhm.
goal of what we want from this season. But sometimes we can't change the way that the season is built around us, and we just have to savor moments,
Mhm.
and look for the holy and look for the quiet and create space to have those moments.
Yeah, and it means slowing down. So there's another S there.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's can we slow down and savor? And it's taking pauses. For us, it's through rituals and storytelling that we savor the things that we talked about that were challenges. So, like the death of a family member, or impairment of a family member, or someone not being able to be here, or just the legacy of the family, the things we do, St. Nick's Day, reading St. Luke's chapter 2 story about Jesus's birth, which connects to your dad and the rich spiritual legacy he's left in our family and in our kids. And these type of things are savory, even when they're dealing with the painful, challenging
Yeah.
pieces. But it's slowing down and being intentional. And with St. Nick's Day, we're able to do that with our Christmas or our gifts given early. There's space for that. But it took us years to
Yeah.
kind of develop that and plan that. So you don't have to have a fully functioning system. You can do one thing at a
One
time.
thing at a time. And when you have time for that, when you have time for slowing down, I feel like you have the space to look for the lonely people and invite them in and,
Yeah.
to be living more in a sense of gratitude and abundance rather than feeling overwhelmed.
Mhm. And we've been fortunate to do that, even like Thanksgiving, to invite international students that don't have a space or a
Hmm.
community to come and be part. And it's joyful, it's savoring, it's enjoying, but it also highlights they're missing their people. And so it's a hopeful thing, but it also comes with some pain. And I want us to savor that too. I know that sounds weird, but I want us to savor the heartache because it communicates we love
Hmm.
and we miss. And so it's not a bummer. It's actually beautiful. It's a space to bring that part of our heart and share it with each other. Even if
Hmm.
there's tears during Christmas, that can be or Thanksgiving, that can be a beautiful thing.
Yeah. And isn't that great if we can actually look forward to the season for reasons that we've just talked about, for slowing down, for instead of feeling busy, for being able to savor even the hard things
Yeah.
together. And sometimes you have to look for the people that can do that with you.
Yeah.
It's not everyone in your life that can do that with you.
No.
So we hope you'll find the people that are the people that can enter into this idea with you,
Yeah.
and that the season will be peaceful and bring you joy, but also remind you of the things that are hard in a way that's hopeful.
Yeah. And we would love to, on some level, be hearing your savory stories. So reach out, let us know, and we'd love to be part of that with you. So um, I hope you have a hopeful holiday and enjoy relationship both in the difficulties and in the beautiful savory moments.
Yeah. And do share this episode with people that you want to enter in that with you, and maybe it will start a conversation.